professional chapter. And I'm very honored to welcome you today to Hattaya's talk on employee volunteering program of VSO. And Hattaya Wongsaengpaiboon has been working at VSO since 2008, and she's super passionate about her work now. Her experience comes from the Danish shipping giant Maersk for a number of years, and she has a law degree from Thammasat University. So without further ado, Hattaya.
So thank you, Kunpra, for introducing me, and it's my honor to be talking to you today. And before I go into my presentation, I would also like to introduce my colleague, Simon Brown. He's coming from office in China, and he's gonna come to share a little bit about his work in China later on as well. So before I go into the presentation, I want to ask you, how many of you have had a colleague or a team member or a friend who seems to have a good career, a bright future, but suddenly feel the need to change, and they leave the company?
That's everybody.
What about ourselves?
Yeah, well, I want to start with this conversation because I want to share my story, because that also very close to me as well. As Kunpra mentioned, I started my career 10 years ago with a Danish shipping company, and when I was working there, I realized that the company really invests in human resource, and they put us into training after training to make sure that we are capable and best in our service. They say that besides the product, the human resource is the most valuable asset in the company. But and I was in a management training program, which have a little bit of advantage in career path. So I really feel that. But still, after years, I feel like this is not right. We're working 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, and I feel like I needed a change. I needed something more meaningful to do in life. And I had a conversation with my friend. She worked in an NGO, and I started to really get excited about her work and want to experience it myself. So I applied with VSO, started at the Program Support Officer, which is the starting level of the position, starting position level. I was happy to do that. I'm totally happy for a change. But now looking back, I don't think everybody will have to go through the same experience. And it doesn't mean that you have to leave your corporate to be working in an NGO for you to feel the sense of life. It's actually no. So the employee volunteering program fits in. It's one of the answers to the company if you want to retain good people, if you want good people to stay with you. So, but before we go into what the impact of volunteering can make to your employee, I'll bring you to see what is volunteering. So volunteers are the one who give their time, their labor for non-profit, for no benefits. and doing it for their own community. And that's their volunteer. There are also different types of volunteers that we experience so far. So there's a hands-on volunteer where they go and they build things and help around, and also skill-based or pro bono volunteers. And these are the ones who use their professional skills to help the communities, to help the local organization in doing work and help them do the work better. And over the years of volunteering, we see a different type of volunteering, and it's changing because of the development of technology and the social network, that the social change that is people are more aware of volunteer activities happening. Now the employee volunteering, to me it means that it's a volunteer activity that is encouraged by the employers themselves, whether it is within the working time or outside working time. I told you the story about my life and how I think the employee volunteering is really help good employee stay. So first, the impact on employee. Volunteering can develop a soft skill, and this is the area that I think is one of the most important skills that most corporate wants to develop in an employee. But it's not easy, training after training. But then again, they go back to the same work routine. So I want to share with you the study. In 2009, the London study surveyed to more than 500 employees who volunteer and also their line manager. And they say 79% of them feel more confidence about themselves. And the majority of them say that they develop the skills in 4 areas, which are communication skills. They help others to set goals in coaching and provide training and evaluating performance. And they also develop the skill of adaptability to work with people in different backgrounds, in a different environment. And they also develop a negotiating skill in conflict situation. Not only the volunteer says, the employee say so, it's the manager himself who overwhelmingly affirm that these are the measurable gains in the same development skills. When you put volunteer to do the work that they have the professional skill in it, then they said that they are not only feel more pride about their job, but it creates awareness about the social issues, and that's 93% say that. When I started working with volunteer, I didn't really think of this benefit like good health and good mental, but over time I really think it's really true, because volunteering puts you in a different environment, puts you in a different situation, and you do things in a different practice. So and when you volunteer, you feel the sense of purpose in life, and 68% say that they feel physically healthier, and 70% of them say that volunteering brings them to the lower level of stress. The last one is motivation. We just had a short conversation about motivation, that this is the impact that volunteering can bring to your own employee. And it's not only the motivation towards the job, towards the company, but it's the motivation to the society as well. Impact on the company. There's an increasing productivity and loyalty of the employee towards the company. Well, the company who support volunteering programs will say, our employees who volunteer are more productive and more loyal and have higher moral. Well, in that sense, we say it's equally valid to say that productive, loyal, and positive people are more likely to volunteer. So they both benefit to the company, but it's really up to the company and human resource how they look at the benefit of this volunteering employee. This is becoming quite a trend that a lot of companies, a lot of corporates are doing this. Not only they're doing the community service themselves, they also bring the supply chains. So they bring the supply chain to incorporating, they have the clients to do, and a lot of time, even the competitor are inputting in the same effort to do the work for the communities. And it is an activity demonstrating your business. So it's how you understand the social issues and what is the company's position in it. The volunteering program also have a good factor about young people, about young generation. Now companies want to compete for young generation workers. But one of the key influences are the corporate values, the commitment to the community, and the way they manifest through volunteer efforts. They, in 2009, Deloitte did a survey, and they asked 1,000 people online, and they are the ones who were born between 1982 to 1994. And they say 62% of them would prefer a company with volunteer opportunity. And 74% of them believe that volunteering should be used for professional development. And 98% of them believe the company should offer skill-based volunteering opportunities. This is the third one, the last one. I'm talking about the impact from the employee volunteering program. But many times when I read articles about the benefit of volunteering program, many times it stops at the first two benefits. The benefit towards the company, the benefit towards the employees. But what strikes me is, how come you're never talking about this? This should be the most important reason why you do your employee volunteering program. So they are the catalysts that enable people to help themselves out of poverty, which means that they need to use the skill to help people. And then this I read from another book from Ken Allen. He's a former director of IADE, which is International Association of Volunteer. I'm sorry, I just totally forgot about the full name. I'll get it back to you when I really look at it. Sorry. But what he said in this, that the most important benefits of employee volunteering come not from the fact that it exists, but it's from the way in which it's carried out. So it's not that they just have it. It's how they do it. That's the most important part. In China, we did a research, and we see that when good volunteer engagement happen, there is an opportunity for an NGO to not just only tell the volunteer what to do in the job, but it's an opportunity for them to educate the volunteer about the social issues. And they'll be surprised. Most of the time, they're surprised of how enthusiastic the volunteer is, and how much they want to know more about the issue and why it's the root cause of what NGO is doing. What is the mission? Why they have to do what they do? And for the company that are responsible citizens, participate in ways that they can lead to the change of behavior in the society. So begin with the corporate employee volunteering program, then they start to have the involvement. The involvement leads to education. And education leads to understanding. When you have understanding, becoming more aware of the issues, and the awareness also leads to the change in your action, in your everyday life. And that's what it brings systematic change, because you realize the issue and you want to make it better. And that starts from the volunteer themselves before. In that process could only happen with a cautious planning and effort between the NGO, the local community, and the corporate side. The answer to this is that we build strong partnerships based on the mutual understanding and expectation. Now, for some of you who may not heard about VSO, you may start to think about then who is VSO and why am I representing VSO, talking about volunteering. Let me tell you a little bit about VSO. VSO is a development organization that fight poverty through volunteering. So in the organization, we don't give food, we don't give money, we don't give medicine, but we bring people together. We bring professional people to work in the local communities. VSO began in 1958, and the first batch volunteer are 16 British young British citizens go out to teach English. We must evolve and change from that point. Now, more than 50 years later, we have sent 40,000 volunteers so far from 94 nationalities to 90 countries. Currently, we have about 11 recruitment offices and 32 offices that we have program working in Thailand, we start. How many of you heard about VSO before this? Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's good. That's sharing. VSO has been in Thailand since 1961, so it's actually only 3 years after we started. And so far, we sent more than 900 professional volunteers to Thailand. That's almost equivalent to 1,500 years of service in Thailand. This is how BSO work, and this is how we believe it is. So we work with people. We work with something not very tangible. You can say you build preschools, and you give 15 scholarships, you send how many people to school. For BSO, how we work to help people do the job better. So volunteers do the work, help their counterparts, the local organization do the work better, so that organization can help more people. And that's how we see the ripple effect. This is the picture of example of VSO in Thailand. At the bottom left, we have VSO volunteer with their team in a very, very small organization in Mason, doing an office training. She is helping with the curriculum for youth migrant. And that's probably the traditional kind of volunteering that we do. Is we have volunteer from developed country to help the country offices develop less developed country. But now we have the picture on the top right. We have a guy who's holding a doll. He is our volunteer from the Philippines, and he's a physical therapist working in a special need center in a refugee camp up in Bangkok. So it's no longer about more developed, less developed. Now it's more about sharing and learning. And if you have a skill and you want to share your skill, work together, then it's okay. Then now we have recruitment base in the Philippines, in India, China, starting to send volunteers as well. And the other two pictures are the example of activities, and also this one at the bottom is one of the training happening in the middle of the jungle. And these are the pictures of Chinese volunteers starting to do volunteering. The top one, she's doing her work in school. The bottom one is a Chinese doctor helping in the hospital. Now, this is what is BSO role with the corporate? What is our position? How do we work with them? Here's essential BSO business partnership. This is captured from the website. And Essential has been a partner with BSO for a very long time. If I'm not wrong, it's 1999.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's about that. And they send the employee to become professional volunteers with BSO. Google, then we have worked with Google. This is between BSO UK and India. So Google sent the employee from the US to volunteer their time in India. And BSO in India help facilitate the in-country training, the short-term placement with our local organization, with BSO India local organizations. This is some sample of the activities. And here's PNG and BSO in China. Not only that volunteer, not only that BSO do individual volunteering or professional volunteering. You have to travel across the world, across the sea to become a volunteer. But we also have the training for the corporates or companies who want to develop their own volunteering program. So we provide, we also provide preparing to volunteer training to mobilize and equip the P&G employee to volunteers in the school they already supported. And with Lenovo, they also have the film volunteering program, and we as China supported Lenovo China to do a training and do the capacity building for the one volunteering development program. Here in VSO in Thailand, we're just starting the volunteering for development program, which one element of it is to promote employee volunteering. So we have this experience working directly with volunteers, and now we want to share that experience. So we could offer consulting, we could offer a tailored training, which means that volunteer program development and management, how we work with NGOs, and also volunteer pre-departure training to prepare volunteers before they go into the communities. The other thing that it will happen later on in the stage of program is also for Thai people to become international volunteers. So we have seen pictures of Philippine volunteers from the Philippines coming to work here, going to work in Africa. And we have China volunteer going outside, becoming a volunteer in Africa or in other countries as well. So later on in the stage, we will explore how we could make this program work in Thailand, because we really believe that Thai people do have capacity and be able to become international volunteer and share the skills outside Thailand. 10 years ago, we had the conversation, similar conversation about whether Thai people could become international volunteer. 10 years ago, we were not convinced. A lot of time we say, Thai people are not good in language, like English is not our first native speakers, and it's too hard. But now I think it's not anymore. We see a lot of younger generation Thai people speaking fluent English, and I'm sure they have other skills to share as well. So there's another stage of this to do here in Thailand. And this is my email address and telephone numbers, just in case that we could continue the talk around this volunteer employee program, or is there any way that we could help you shape your volunteer program? Thank you. That's it.
Any questions from the audience?
Sounds like very interesting work, actually. It's something I'd like to do as well. The question, though, is the other side getting NGOs. Do you have any trouble getting NGOs to accept volunteers and these kinds of volunteers, even when you prep them and train them?
During the time that I was working with between international volunteers and local organizations, we get this feedback all the time that do we have Thai people to volunteer instead of international volunteers? Not that they don't like international volunteers, but many times we experience barriers, like language barriers, for example. And if we could have Thai volunteer working for the local organizations, they would be really, really happy to have.
Have you learned this, right? Yeah, it's kind of, I think it's a really good question, because it's something we've really looked at in China, and it's something that NGOs feel very strongly about in China. Of course, historically,
You mean among their own people and the Chinese people? Or?
yeah, I mean, if you look at international volunteering, NGOs in other countries are going to love them. They're going to love an international volunteer and work with them.
Absolutely.
For different reasons.
Feel honored.
Absolutely, this is one. If you're looking domestically, if you're looking at employee volunteering, corporate volunteering within your own country, within your own community, certainly the kind of feeling we've got from Chinese NGOs, I don't think it's specific to Chinese NGOs, is that there's been a big shift. Traditionally, they got money, and they got gifts from companies. They got some money to help do their work, and then companies have kind of said, well, actually, we'd like to send our people, which is actually tremendous in terms of sending people who can build the capacity of those NGOs, particularly. But often it's not that. It's around we want you to go and organise an event in a children's school or something that gives our staff an activity. And the feeling from Chinese NGOs has been, that's okay, but it actually creates a huge amount of work on a one-off kind of event. And that a lot of companies are not willing to recognise that cost. And I think there is that kind of shift, a huge shift from giving money to giving people, but not recognising actually giving the people creates work, and that work costs money. Yeah. Now, there are really good examples of where some companies are doing it really well, like Intel. I think Intel, not just in China, but around the world, is probably the benchmark in terms of the way they've developed their employee volunteering. If you're an Intel member of staff, 50% of the worldwide staff volunteer, which is pretty impressive. In Vietnam, 90% volunteer. Right? But if you volunteer with an NGO that's linked to the Intel volunteering program, Intel gives $5 for every hour that you use that volunteer. Now I think this is probably at the extreme end of what's possible. There's something much more in between, of recognising that actually if we're asking an NGO to organise an event for our staff to go and do an activity, then there is a cost, and the NGO naturally doesn't have that money normally. Yeah.
I was actually thinking more in terms of the NGO's own culture and accepting outsiders into their culture.
I think that is breaking down very, very quickly. I think there is a trend between company staff like me moving into the development sector, but we're also seeing development sector workers, NGO workers, moving often into kind of social responsibility programs. Yeah, so there is that kind of shifting of people between those sectors, private sector, development sector, and that's helping a little bit, or a lot. In terms of smaller NGOs accepting corporate staff to come volunteering in their program, again, it depends on the relationship. If it is an event, that it is an overhead for an organisation, yeah? and often it kind of makes an expectation. If you're going to go and volunteer with some disabled children, particularly mentally disabled children, you're going to in those children you're going to very quickly create a dependence. And one of the reactions from NGOs is that companies and company staff often will come once, twice, and they say, it was very nice, but I've had enough. Now, of course, that creates problems within the people that NGO is working with. Yeah, so there is, I think there is a shift. It's helped by people going backwards and forwards between the sectors, but there is, I think, still some work to do on really NGOs being able to articulate to companies the implications of doing something once or twice with particularly vulnerable people. Yeah.
Fine. It sounds like you're kind of an interpreter between the NGO side and the corporate side. Build bridges there.
Yeah, I think
Enemies, friends.
Sorry?
Make enemies.
Yeah,
into friends.
yeah,
Because
make enemies
it's
into friends.
usually the
Yeah,
NGO and
I've got an intermediary. Yeah.
You had a question?
Yeah, actually, I got most of the answer through your little speech here. But regarding the Thai volunteers, or the it's just a comment now. Like we are doing twice a year, have doctors up in our villages or doing the volunteer. We have contact with the local doctors association, and it's very, very easy to get the doctors into the volunteer work as long as you just provide them to decent information. And it's just coming to the time.
It's easy for the...
Very easy for us. We do twice a year. And it's actually people are queuing up to get involved.
Right.
And it's kind of domestic, but we operate with the Hitchhike people, so it's actually two cultural differences within the same country. So,
Yeah.
and they doesn't speak the same language most of the time.
Microphone.
Yes.
Do I need one? Is it being? Well, she's got two questions.
Yes.
First question is, apart from the Intels, Accentures, and the multinationals, how does the attitudes of Western countries versus Asian countries actually differ? Are there clear differences in acceptance of employee programs? Are there any?
In terms of international volunteers, or...
No, the employee programs that you're doing,
The corporate.
the corporate ones.
Culture volunteering doesn't really exist here.
Well, that was kind of the question, to some extent. Are you seeing many local companies actually doing something?
Well, in my opinion, Thai company, well, it's starting. It is starting to be more aware, to get employees to be more involved, and so I think it's a starting point. I think that how evolving of volunteering activity is a different level. Yeah, so that's how I see it. The international multi-corporate companies would understand and would have like a volunteering program, trying to encourage volunteering program in their own corporate. But for Thai national firm, they're probably a starting point of engage with the community, going to plant trees, and starting from that.
I think, yeah, and again, thinking back to China, and I don't suspect China, again, is that different than any country. Certainly when I talked in Indonesia, they felt very similar. We surveyed 1,000 company staff in China, Chinese staff, half of which in some way had volunteered, sometimes through their own company program, sometimes through their own private connections. Half had not volunteered. More than 99% of the people who we surveyed said under the right circumstances, and I think that's very important, under the right circumstances of company support, they would want to volunteer. And I suspect that's the same probably in Thailand as much as across the whole of Asia. Given the right circumstances, and the right circumstances often means that there's some benefit from the company or reward from the company or recognition from the company about volunteering. But more than 99% said they would like to.
Well, has there been any study, any statistics on comparing those companies, say in Thailand, that have incentives? I keep hearing from companies that give 1 or 2 or sometimes even 3 days a year off for specifically public service. Now, those companies that offer that, what percentage of the staff take them up on that in Thailand as opposed to, say, in the West or say, other countries in Asia? Do we have those statistics right?
We don't have statistics, kind of black and white statistics, but from the conversations I'm having with companies, the take-up rate for most programs is extremely low.
Yeah, that's what I would.
Yeah, and that's part of under the right circumstances kind of argument for those volunteers or potential volunteers. Companies do, increasingly do, give, you say 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, sometimes even 2 days a month to go and volunteer. Now that's very nice, it's a very nice framework to say you've got that opportunity, but unless you're actually balancing that with the work commitment, it becomes something that people will never take up. Yeah.
The Thai labor law actually leaves some room in that sense that if you take it a little bit, you have different kinds of leave in the Thai labor law, which like religious leaves, but also some to do beneficial community.
If I were the company, I would be right up.
No, but people doesn't know. People
Yeah, from what I learned also that the government offices also have 3 to 5 days a year to volunteer. But do you think how many percentage of government officers really take up that days? Less than 1%.
Yeah, but I think it goes beyond the days. I think it is that support. And if we look at that Intel program again, they're not giving days off. They're encouraging their staff to volunteer in their own time. Sometimes they do it. They have structured programs where they go and do some capacity building in NGOs. It's kind of
Structure is important.
Yeah. But it's around giving opportunities, giving reward, and they actually have a competition in their business units. So it's actually competing against. So you've got general managers of business units competing against each other to see who can generate the most number of days of volunteering. Yeah? So it's not. It becomes part of the culture of the company more than a project within it.
And it's on work the cost time, volunteer work.
No.
Most of the people.
No.
Annual meetings.
Yet they're the
Company
In
trips.
terms of corporate volunteering, yeah, of course. Now, as we look to work with companies who need help in developing a corporate volunteering program, but of course, Intel, they've sussed it. And they don't really need any help. They're the ones that are now helping other companies also in developing their own programs. Yeah.
So what was the biggest objective or incentive for Intel to have taken up the volunteer program? What they want most out of it?
Staff motivation, retention. Yeah. It's that. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
can't leave now because my team is not in the office.
Yeah. But that's what it is. It's not in Intel. It wasn't kind of started for a specific reason of business development or anything like that. But whereas other programs have kind of worked that way, this one's very much around. We've got a young staff. How do we keep them excited? Yeah, and part of that is then connecting them back with community. And it's very much consistent with the Deloitte annual survey of young people, and particularly around volunteering. That Intel have recognised it. Yeah, that once if you have a volunteering program, you give opportunity for young people to volunteer, you're going to double the likelihood that they're going to stay with the company. Yeah.
So if there's no other question, I'd like to give a very warm welcome, a very warm applause of thanks to Hattaya for the talk today. I'd like to present you with a little gift from the Bangkok professional chapter of Net Impact and a little follow-up. Oh.
Hold that thought.
Did you get it? Everyone?
Yes. Only for the speakers. Thank you, Simon, as well.
Pleasure. And if anybody needs, I talked about that Deloitte survey around employee volunteering. If anybody wants it, it's got some really useful information on there on what young people are saying, young staff are saying. Ask good, and I'll make sure we've got a copy to send out. Yeah.
That'd be online, wouldn't it?
It's online, yeah. If you just search Deloitte Impact Survey, you'll get it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And just as an announcement, on Tuesday we are organizing a trip to the Siam Cement Group's green buildings. It's very interesting. They've actually gotten the LEED certification for their existing buildings. The new building, the 100-year building, will be finished next year, so we won't be able to see that until next year. But for now, it would be really interesting to see how they retrofit a very old building into something that deserves LEED certification in the U.S. That's Tuesday, and you can still sign up for the van ride. It leaves here at 8:30. I won't be here, but Rachida will be our guide, and we start there around 9:30. It goes on until 11. And next month we have a talk with Robert Steele on October 17th, and that would be on the masterclass that we're holding in January, which I highly encourage all of you to take. It's a 5-day intensive workshop on sustainability and change management with our gurus, Ellen Atkinson, Axel Klimek, and Robert Steele, and all of us here at the center as well. It's from Saturday to Wednesday, January 18th to 22nd, and it's one of the best things that I've done. So I'd like to really share that with as many people as possible. So Robert will be talking to us about that on October 17th. And anything else? Oh yes, I will be sending out the brochure for the masterclass with all the details either today or tomorrow. So if you're interested, then please get in touch with us and register early for the early bird discount. Very good rates if you register before November 15th. So thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you all next month or sooner.